I've been dealing with the de-Christianization of Europe, and for that matter, the de-Christianization of the world. And I think that promotes the area and the idea, that promotes the idea of the falling away first. The Apostle Paul deals with in 2 Thessalonians chapter number 2. We are in a time of apostasy. And I think that we have made a bit of a mistake by appropriating this area of apostasy only to Christianity apostatizing, schools and theology and things of that nature apostatizing. When in reality, I think that there's a general apostasy throughout the world, starting with Darwin's Origin of Species. It's published about 1880. That denied the first 3 chapters of Genesis and promoted the idea of evolution and natural selection, completely removing God from the principle of creation. Well, if God is not responsible for creation, then obviously man is not responsible to God, which is exactly what the humanist and the secularist want. Man is incurably religious, and that vacuum will be filled by something. And of course, you and I understand from the Apostle Paul that vacuum will be filled by the adversary, where men began to worship and serve the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forevermore. And men today worship the creature, the creation, rather than worshiping the God of creation. Now, the globalists have been impatient, and what has been going on now for 140 years, since Darwin's book is about 140 years old. And then for about 75 years, from the end of World War II, there has been an increasing secularization of thought and a movement toward a one world government. That's been at work since the close of World War II, 1945. The world has been moving toward a new world order, globalism. We heard President Bush, 41, speak much about a new world order in 1989, 1990, 1991. So this is not anything new. But the globalists became impatient, and they thought that through mass migration, mass immigration, that they could destroy the Christian culture and the Christian foundation of Europe. And I think that is what has been at work for the last 4 or 5 years. But it's interesting that the people in the United States became weary of the whole open borders, no borders, which is a principle of globalism, became weary of that, losing the culture of their cities, of their towns, losing the culture of their states, losing their voting blocks, losing their ability to elect. And now we have radical Muslims being elected from Minnesota and Michigan because of the wanton, open, wholesale immigration. We have other states, Arizona, Texas, Nevada, New Mexico, places like that, losing the fabric and culture of the feel of their states. Hungary and Poland pushed back against the European government in Brussels, Belgium. And Hungary has stated that they will never surrender. And it's not too late for the rest of Europe either. Urban declared in 2018 in a State of the Nation speech, before once again dominating at the polls. Still, the Prime Minister acknowledged that the situation for Western Europe was bleak, saying a return to Christianity was the continent's last hope. Well, I don't think he's alone in his declaration in Europe. I think that the last hope of the United States is a return to Christianity if it's going to avoid destruction at the hand of the globalist. Again, the globalist and globalism is not compatible with Christianity. The globalists are only compatible with the idea of humanism, a humanistic mindset where the man is his own God, where there is no God that I am responsible to other than being responsible to myself. Some 80% of Hungarians, quote, want to preserve our Christian culture and our Christian traditions, end quote, he said. Quote, I believe that we Hungarians have a future if we remain Hungarian, if we cultivate the Hungarian language, defend our Christian and Hungarian culture, and preserve independence and Hungarian freedom, end quote. That doesn't sound anything different than what I've heard Mr. Trump promote in preserving an American culture and preserving the American language and preserving the American way of life. But there will be major challenges ahead. Soon the forces of Islam will be swamping Hungary, not just from the south, but from the west also. The number of Muslim children in European schools is soaring as the population of native Europeans declines precipitously. Quote, Islamic civilization, which has always seen its mission as the conversion of Europe to what it calls the true faith, will knock on Central Europe's door, not only from the south, but also from the west, end quote, the leader said. However, quote, absurd it seems the situation is that now the danger is threatening us from the west. This danger to us comes from politicians in Brussels, Berlin, and Paris. They want us to adopt their policies, the policies that made them immigrant countries and that opened the way for the decline of Christian culture and the expansion of Islam. In the years ahead, the immigration avalanche that swamped Europe may seem minor by comparison. NATO reports cited by Urbane suggest that by 2020, some 60 million people from Africa and Asia will have set off to settle in Europe. By 2050, Urbane continued, there will be 10 times more Africans than young Europeans on the planet. And many of these young Africans will try to flood into dying Europe. If this means, quote, if this mass of several 100 million young people is allowed to travel north, then Europe will soon come under horrendous pressure, end quote, he explained. Quote, furthermore, the majority of immigrants will arrive from the Islamic world. If everything continues in this way, then the cities of Europe will clearly have majority Muslim populations, and London will not be an outlier, but a pioneer, end quote. In London, native Brits are already in the minority. In Frankfurt, Germans are a minority. Quote, politicians do not yet talk about this openly, but everyone can already see it, end quote, he said. Quote, the great old European nations in Western Europe have become immigrant countries. Day by day, their cultural foundations are being transformed. The population raised in a Christian culture is declining, and the major cities are undergoing Islamization. And I had to say that I cannot see the political forces with the will and ability to stop these processes, let alone horrible ducti, which means horrible to say, reverse them, end quote. In response, though, Orbán is working to forge an alliance of nations devoted to liberty, Christianity, and the nation state that can resist the globalist onslaught. Now, here's the challenge that lies before us. Trump's remarks about immigration changing Europe's culture came the same day that United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, a Socialist Party leader and former United Nations refugee boss, praised the growing mass migration into the West. Quote, migration is a positive global phenomenon, end quote, he claimed. Guterres also praised the UN for its, quote, global compact, end quote, on migration and urged the United States government, which withdrew from the global body's mass migration schemes under Trump, to rejoin. Quote, let's not forget that United States is itself a country of immigration, end quote, Guterres claimed, ignoring the fact that Islamic immigration and even the massive wave of Latin American, Asian, and African immigration are a new phenomenon. In Europe, as Christianity is marginalized, Trump's warning may prove to be an understatement. Cataclysm is the likely result of the changes taking root. Quote, at any time, the loss of all unifying stories about our past or ideas about what to do with our present or future would be a serious conundrum. But during the time of momentous societal change and upheaval, the results are proving fatal, wrote journalist Douglas Murray in his book, The Strange Death of Europe, Immigration, Identity, and Islam. Now my time is gone on the Bright Spot Hour today, but the Lord willing, I'll return on tomorrow and continue. By the grace of God, I hope you'll be hearing the Bright Spot Hour at that time.